Pat's Listening English.
Chapter 1. Do you need to study abroad? Have you ever heard someone say, you need to live abroad if you want to speak English well? I understand why people believe that. Living abroad can help a lot. You hear English around you. You have to use it in real situations. You make mistakes and you learn from them. But today, I want to talk about people who learned English in a different way. Over the years, I have met people who became confident English speakers without ever studying abroad. They were different ages, from young learners to older adults. They came from different countries, had different jobs, and lived different lives. But they had one important thing in common. Chapter 2. What they had in common. They did not wait for the perfect environment. They used what they already had around them. Some learned through radio lessons, some learned through movies. Some used English subtitles, notebooks, dictionaries, and repetition. Most importantly, they did not just listen passively and hope English would somehow enter their brain. They listened carefully. They checked meanings. They repeated phrases out loud. They reviewed what they had learned. They used their voice. This episode is not about a magic method. It is not about becoming fluent in 3 months. It is not about saying that English is easy. It is about what can happen when someone keeps English close to daily life and uses it actively. One story has stayed with me for many years. Chapter 3. The Woman Who Started at 40. One of my English teachers told me about a woman who began learning English seriously when she was around 40. She was raising children, so she did not have hours of free time every day. What surprised me most was that she started from the very beginning. She even learned how to write the alphabet again. So this was not a story about someone who already had a strong English background. She started with the basics. In her country, there was a simple English conversation radio program. The lessons were basic, and each program was only about 15 minutes long. 15 minutes may sound too short to make a big difference. But she recorded the program. She listened to it carefully. She repeated the phrases aloud. She reviewed the lesson. She checked new words every week. She did not treat the radio lesson as background noise. She did not just turn it on and forget about it. She used that short lesson seriously. Chapter 4. Why her method worked. The program itself was simple, but the way she used it was active. She listened with attention. She practiced saying the phrases. She checked vocabulary. She reviewed the same material again. And she kept doing it for years. My teacher said that almost 10 years passed before she realized how much her English had improved. 10 years may sound like a very long time, but time passes anyway. The important question is not only, how fast can I improve? It is also, what am I doing with the time I already have? Many learners give up after a few weeks because they do not see dramatic progress. They try one textbook, they watch a few videos, they listen to something for a short time. Then they feel disappointed because they still cannot speak well. But this woman did something different. She accepted a simple method and used it actively for a long time. That is the key point. Simple material can help if you use it seriously. A beginner lesson is not a problem. A short lesson is not a problem. The problem is using it only once and expecting a big result right away. If you want the material to become useful, you need to work with it. You need to understand the words. You need to repeat the phrases. You need to review them. You need to say them out loud. Chapter 5: People who learned from movies. I have also met people who learned a lot of English from movies. When I asked how they improved, several people said they learned from watching movies. But this can be misunderstood. They did not mean that they simply watched movies for fun and suddenly became good at English. They did not mean that they played English movies in the background without paying attention. They watched actively. They used English subtitles. They watched the same scenes more than once. They paused when they heard a word they did not know. They checked meanings. They repeated useful lines. They also paid attention to how people actually spoke. Movies helped them because movies showed English in real situations. They could hear short responses, natural reactions, casual phrases, and the rhythm of real conversations. They could also see the situation. Who was speaking? Why did that person say it? Was the situation serious, casual, polite, or emotional? That kind of context helps. For example, if you hear the phrase, "I did not mean it that way," the words are important. You need to understand when someone might say it. Maybe the person said something that sounded rude. Maybe the other person misunderstood. Maybe the speaker wants to explain their real intention. When a phrase is connected to a situation, it becomes easier to remember and easier to use later. This is one reason movies can be useful for language learning. But the method matters. Watching movies can help if you check words, repeat useful phrases, and notice how people speak. But if you do not understand most of the words and never check anything, just listening may not be enough. Chapter 6: Why Passive Listening is Not Enough. Listening without understanding has limits. If you already know a lot of vocabulary, listening a lot can help your ears get used to natural speed and rhythm. It can help you recognize words faster. It can also help you understand pronunciation and intonation. But if too many words are unknown, your brain may only hear sounds. You may not understand the meaning, and you may not be able to use the phrases later. That is why subtitles can help. That is why checking vocabulary matters. That is why repeating out loud matters. This does not mean you have to stop every few seconds. That can become tiring, and it may make learning harder to continue. But when you find a useful phrase, it helps to pause, check it, repeat it, and maybe write it down. The people I met did not all use the same method. One person used a basic radio program for many years. Other people used movies. Some used subtitles. Some used notebooks. Some repeated lines out loud. Some improved slowly. Some improved faster. But their attitude was similar. They kept English close to their daily lives. They did not only wait for school. They did not only wait for a teacher. They did not only wait for a chance to go abroad. They used what they already had. Chapter 7: Why I Make These Videos. This is one reason I wanted to make this kind of content on this channel. When I was learning English, I wanted more useful listening practice. I wanted content that I could listen to many times. I wanted English that was clear, practical, and connected to real life. Not only difficult lectures, not only random phrases, not only fast conversations without support. I wanted something I could use for listening, shadowing, speaking practice, and thinking in English. That is why I believe learners need different types of English practice. Some days you may need slow and easy listening. Some days you may need useful phrases. Some days you may need a real story. Some days you may need content that gives your brain a little more pressure. Learning English does not have to feel painful, but it usually needs active effort. You need to notice new words. You need to understand phrases in context. You need to say things out loud. You need to repeat useful expressions until they become easier to use. Chapter 8: What Really Makes the Difference. So, can someone learn to speak English well without studying abroad? Yes, I believe it is possible. But not by doing nothing. Not by only collecting materials. Not by only watching videos once. Not by only listening without attention. The people I met improved because they kept English close to their daily lives and used it actively. They listened, they checked, they repeated, they reviewed, they used their voice. That may sound simple, but simple does not mean easy. The difficult part is continuing long enough. You do not need to copy someone else's exact method. You do not need to listen to the same radio program for 10 years. You do not need to learn only from movies. But you can learn from their attitude. Choose something useful. Use it actively. Review it when you can. Say useful phrases out loud. And keep English close to your daily life. What mattered was that they found a way that fit their lives and stayed with it. They focused on one useful method and kept using it until it became part of their learning. I will keep sharing English practice, useful phrases, and real learning ideas on this channel. Thank you for listening. See you in the next video.